On this channel, I've posted a number of videos about assertive communication, what it is, what the alternatives are, what holds people back from being assertive, and so on. Well, that's great, but it can wind up being a little theoretical. In medical and business schools lately, there's been a focus on case-based learning, where you take an actual practical example and work upward to the concepts, rather than just teaching the concepts and working downward. Because after all, the whole point of medicine is to actually apply the ideas with a real person. And similarly, the whole point of assertiveness is to apply the concepts in real situations with real people. And of course, there's all kinds of settings: work, marriage, parent-kid, you name it. One of the things that's been giving a lot of people trouble through COVID, and let's face it, before that as well, is coping with the people you live with, your family, your roommates, whoever. So long as you get the outlet of being away from home much of the time, some things can be not so much of a problem. But when you're all working from home, it pushes you together. And you know what happens when you push things together under pressure. You get friction. So let's consider some actual scenarios that people have talked about on social media and that we've run into on our assertiveness group therapy programs, and how to handle them from an assertive perspective. Now we're going to focus, in this video at least, on neatness and chores. Throughout, I'm going to use the most important principle of assertiveness that I've talked about elsewhere. Assertiveness is about controlling your own behavior, not controlling other people's behavior. Well, that sounds great, but maybe you actually do want the other person to change. You're already doing enough. The secret is still to look at your own role in the dance and change your own moves. Okay, let's start with an easy one. Let's say that you have a relationship where you do the laundry. Your partner does other stuff, but the laundry is your job. Fine. But your partner leaves clothes everywhere. You wind up on a scavenger hunt every time you want to do a wash. How could you handle that? Well, like I say, this one is pretty easy. So, honey, I'm all good with doing the laundry, but I'm not so great with looking around the house for it. So I'm going to do all the laundry that's in the hamper. If you want anything washed, no problem. Just put it in the hamper and I will get to it. If you have a shirt that clearly needs washing, it's got mud all over it, you really want it, and it's sitting right beside the hamper in clear view, no problem. If you want it washed, just put it in the hamper. Now, the important thing with all assertive communication is don't lie. If you wind up picking up stuff and washing it, you lied. You said you weren't going to do that. Don't lie. In the back of your mind, you'll be thinking, look, I'm doing whites. The washer is half full. Here is a pair of white socks right there on the floor. There's no guesswork. And I love having an empty hamper, knowing the wash is all done. If I do the laundry and I don't do those socks, they will still need washing. Tough. Don't do them. And understand something. Things will not change overnight. There will be stuff on the floor, I guarantee it. And you have to pretend to be blind. You don't see them. And you'll think, this isn't working. Doesn't matter. Keep at it. What if one reason you put stuff in the hamper is to make the bedroom look better? Well, two things. If this works, your partner will start putting stuff in the hamper eventually, and then the bedroom will be cleaner and you won't be the person doing it and getting resentful. Second, you can do something with them. You do not put things in the hamper and you do not launder them, but you might gather them together in a nice little pile beside the bed on their side or on their side of the closet. Now, the reason they're leaving that stuff on the floor is because they're allowed to. Who says? You, because you're picking it up for them. This gives them permission to do that no matter what you actually say. Every time you pick it up and put it in the hamper or the washer, you are rewarding them for doing that. Is that something you really want to be doing? Okay, what about the living room? People leave their stuff everywhere. Books, chargers, computers, jackets, homework, toys, you name it, it's a mess. You've been straightening it up, and within minutes, it's messy again. You feel like you're in a long-standing war with your family. Maybe you nag them or yell at them, but that's not working. No surprise, it almost never does. Why is this going on? Well, in part because you're giving them permission again with your actions. You pick the stuff up and go deliver it to all its proper places. That needs to end. Now, when you're starting out being assertive, it often feels like you need to go further than you actually do. Anything left in this living room will be thrown out. Well, no, it won't be. You're not going to throw out your kids' homework or your spouse's rain jacket. It won't happen. And if it did, it probably wouldn't solve the problem. You need to do something milder and smaller, less ambitious, and that will work better. So listen, I'm not going to throw out your toys, but I'm also not going to put them away in their boxes in your bedroom. So what do I do? What a lot of people do is they come up with a dedicated box and a place to put it. Not a super convenient place. Someplace like maybe the basement or in a closet somewhere. And then, really important, you tell people. So listen, I've been getting really frustrated with all this stuff lying around and nagging and stuff, and I don't want to do that anymore. And I know this stuff is important to you. So if there's things lying around, I'm going to put them in this box, and you can always find this box. It'll live right here in this closet. So if you can't find something, look there first. Now, people get so enthusiastic about stuff like this. Somebody goes to the bathroom, comes back, their book is gone. Don't be doing that. Partly because that's not the problem. The problem is that stuff accumulates over time. So you have to be pretty conservative. You take stuff that's clearly out of place and you put it carefully in the box. And if people say, "Where's my rain jacket?" you say, "Oh, I think it's in the box." You do not hide stuff in the bottom. You do not toss it in carelessly. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute. It'll take as much time to put it in the box as it would to hang it up in the closet. Maybe more. Yes, yes. But the point is that if you hang it up in the closet, you'll be doing that for the rest of your life. And after 3 times in the box, they'll hang it up themselves. Okay, but what if it's dirty dishes? Beer cans, half-eaten pizza. That's going to make that box a toxic waste dump. You don't put it in there. You hold a household meeting and you try to get at least some consensus. Doesn't have to be perfect. So, is it your job to clean up my dirty dishes in the family room? Notice what I did. I turned it around. But hang on, I never leave my dirty dishes in there. But I never said I did. I asked them if it's their job to clean up after me. Chances are they'll say no. Now, if you think they'll just be unreasonable and say, "Well, of course I would do that," just because they know what you're on about, maybe you wouldn't do that. But hopefully they'll see that this would be unreasonable. So, is it my job to clean up other people's dishes? Notice what I just did. I didn't say your dishes. That's accusatory and is more likely to raise their defenses. Even if they're the only person in the entire household that does this, it's better to frame it as a general principle. Other people's dishes. Hopefully they will say no or remain silent. But even if they say yes, you can say, "Well, I don't think it is, so I'm not going to do it." And what are they going to say? Fine, don't. Doesn't bother them to have dirty dishes around. So then there's one of two moves. One, the dirty dishes go outside the door of the person's room who put them there. Now that only works if you know who did it, and you really do have to know, right? You can't make a mistake on that. Second, you make it clear that you're willing to do something that you normally do once the dishes are cleaned away. As soon as these dishes are in the washer, I'm going to start dinner. Yep, I'm driving you to school soon as the dishes are clean. Now, neither of those may work in your particular situation, but you see the general point. It's about controlling your behavior. You may need to find something else that you're doing as part of your dance, but the key is not to force them to do something, it's to change something you're doing. Okay, something bigger. You're doing way more than your fair share of stuff around the house. Maybe you've got an adult kid living with you. Or, to use a story from my media feed, a friend is living with you temporarily, maybe because they can't get to their home country due to COVID or something. And they're not doing anything. It's like you're running a hotel. What you feel like doing is to express your emotions. Yell, tell them how disappointed you are, evoke guilt, nag them. But communication is done with a goal in mind. What is your real goal? Is it to end the friendship, or is it to get things working better? You have to pick. My suggestion is pick something effective. So the first thing is to be alone and figure out what you're dissatisfied about. In this case, you could write out all the chores that regularly need doing: cooking, cleaning, shopping, whatever. And notice there are two categories. There's stuff people do for their own benefit, like their own laundry or making their own bed. And then there's stuff people do for the household as a whole, like making Thursday dinner for people or buying groceries from the list on the fridge. And some people feel like they're carrying their own weight if they do all their own stuff. You know, they make their own meals, they vacuum their own room, they hang up their own jacket, but they forget there's all that other stuff that needs doing. If they're not even doing their own stuff, have it on the list. If everybody is doing their own stuff, then just concentrate on the mutual stuff. And be careful. You're frustrated. So when you do this, you'll be thinking about the stuff that you do that nobody else helps with. That stuff, yes, should be on the list. How come I make every single meal? But make sure you include the stuff that other people do as well. Otherwise, when you make your case, they're going to bring up their own role, no matter how trivial it seems like it is to you. Hey, I empty the dishwasher every time it runs. Well, yeah, they do. So you have to make sure that's on the list. And watch out for the frame. You might be thinking about everything that happens inside the walls of the house. But the person you're frustrated with may say, "You're absolutely right. You do all the stuff inside, and I take care of everything outside. I mow the lawn, I weed the garden, I fix the garage door, and I drive your mother to dialysis twice a week. What's the problem?" You may feel like you're weakening your argument by adding in the stuff that they do. You're not. You're strengthening it. So once you have your list, it's time for a household meeting, and notice your secret agenda. Make everybody feel bad. That's only going to sabotage things if you do not keep it under wraps. And notice the temptation to single out the worst culprit and publicly humiliate them. Everybody is doing stuff except you. This is guaranteed to raise their defenses. They'll feel stressed and threatened, and no one gets more open and agreeable when they're stressed. So, looks like we're all going to be living here together longer than we planned, and we're all in this together. My work is cranking up again, so we need to figure out how to make this sustainable. Everybody's pretty much taking care of their own laundry and dishes. Thank you so much for that. So we just need to figure out the other things on this list. Notice how casual I am. If I get too grim and serious, people will freak out and start resisting on me. Now, there's often a big worry here. They won't be willing to take on anything. So you can feel like just assigning stuff. You're going to make dinner on Mondays, and you on Tuesdays, and you'll vacuum the place, and you'll do the recycling. And they're going to say, "Who appointed you, God?" So it's better to say something like, well, we probably all have our preferences, and there's probably stuff that none of us wants to do, but somebody has to do it. Anybody want to take on something? And then sit. If you ask a question like that, do not be the first to answer it. That tells people, if I ever ask a question like that, just keep quiet because I'll answer it myself. You won't have to do anything. That is the wrong message. And then start dividing up the list. But there's still that fear, isn't there? What if they refuse? Well, I'm kind of a guest in this house. Oh, you're right, Joan. But a guest is 3 days. After that, you're family. But that probably won't happen. When you have a guest who's not doing anything, usually it's because they don't know what to do. Almost all of them will take something on. What if it's your kid? I'm just a kid. I can't fix the roof. And anyway, I didn't ask to be born, and I have school. You're right. You're 14, and I wouldn't want you on that roof anyway. And you're right. You're going to school, and you don't drive, right? So you can't take grandma to her dialysis. Acknowledge the point rather than fighting against it. And usually you want to resist the temptation to point out the obvious. There's other stuff on the damn list. They can see that. Now maybe they'll say, well, what are you going to do? At that point, do take something. I will make dinner on Sundays. Now secretly you think, I'm going to be doing all the dinners. You kidding? Right? But do not lump 7 dinners into one thing. Take them on one bit at a time. And you don't have to do a round like you're dealing cards. I do one, you do one. She does one, he does one. I do one. No. Take stuff on and write it down. Eventually the blank space under your house guest's name or your kid's name gets more and more obvious. They will take something. And it probably won't be equal. Your kid isn't going to do as much as you unless you're working and he's 24 and unemployed. Then he should be doing more than you. But your 14-year-old? No. She's going to have some stuff, but not a full share. You're not upset because it's unequal. You're upset because it's too unequal. It'll probably never be perfect, but you don't need it to be. And then what? Well, the most important thing is that people don't just forget all about this meeting, all right? You write it up and you post it somewhere. And once again, that critical principle, you don't undermine your own efforts. Joan hasn't taken out the recycling. Do not do it for her. Unless she has the flu or is away for the week or something, right? You don't have to open your mouth to communicate something. If you do the recycling for her, with your mouth zipped, you just said, Joan, if you don't do your chores, it's totally okay. I'll do them, right? So they're my responsibility, not your responsibility. That is not a message you should be sending. Okay. So those are a few assertiveness scenarios where you can apply the idea of controlling yourself instead of others. Now, maybe these ideas would not work in your particular circumstances, or maybe you have other problems or potential solutions that you'd like to bring up. Great. Put them in the comments section, and maybe I'll do another of these.